Welcome back to PLR, where we seek to build a network of leftists in the so-called state of Rhode Island so that we, the collective we, can one day win local power. I'm Evan. I'm here in the turtle shell to talk about another movie that helped radicalize me at a young age. The movie I'm talking about today was the highest grossing film of all time until it was unseated by another film made by the same guy. I'm of course talking about Titanic, James Cameron's historical drama and masterpiece of melodrama. At the time that it was made, it was the most expensive movie with a budget of like $200 million or something, and it brought in something like $2.4 billion worldwide. Actually, I looked it up, and James Cameron's net worth is $700 million. So when Susie Amos, who had a supporting role as Old Rose's granddaughter Lizzie in the movie, used her feminine wiles to lure away the innocent Jim from his wife, fellow Oscar-winning filmmaker Catherine Bigelow, who has a measly $40 million net worth. Shirley knew what she was doing. Way to go. I think previously I said it came out in 1998, but it really came out in 97. According to the internet, it was nominated for 14 Oscars, and it won 11 of them, including Best Picture and Director, I believe. Also that year, we were treated to Waiting for Guffman, Lost Highway, Booty Call, Donnie Brasco, Jungle to Jungle, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, Liar Liar, Chasing Amy, Grosse Point Blank, Austin Powers 1, The Fifth Element, both Air Bud and Con Air, Batman and Robin, Face Off, Men in Black, Good Burger. I mean, just so many movies, and like, man, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. News-wise, that was the year Princess Diana died, as did Mother Teresa, as did members of the Heaven's Gate cult. That was the year of the O.J. Simpson trial. Mike Tyson bit off a dude's ear. The global stock market crashed. Microsoft did really well. And The Lion King debuted on Broadway while 18 million people starved to death in the third world. So, thank God there were so many movies to go see instead of like watching CNN or whatever. So back to Titanic. It's obviously based on a real historical event, the sinking of the RMS Titanic in the Atlantic Ocean in April of 1912. The ship, which RMS, I think stands for like Royal Mail Service or some shit, meaning it carried Royal Mail and could fly the Crown's flag and colors, which was part of the White Star Line, and that was the largest ship in service at the time, hence the name Titanic, which literally means big and powerful. It was designed and built in Ireland, and the, quote, maiden voyage, meaning the first voyage, meaning the ship, who is a lady, lost its virginity. Sailing language is so weird. The maiden voyage was its only voyage, obviously, because it sank. And it began in the UK, I want to say Southampton, and was supposed to go to New York, but crashed into an iceberg a few hundred miles off the coast of Newfoundland, and flooded and sank, killing over 1,500 people just days after departing. There were 3 classes of passenger, and the classes were strictly segregated. Among the first-class passengers were very wealthy businessmen, socialites, heirs and heiresses. They had very fancy accommodations, as you can see in the film. The cheapest first-class ticket was about £25, which would equal like £2,500 today, which is over $3,000 in US dollars. The tippy-top first-class tickets would be around $12,000 today. Dude, imagine buying a ticket for $12,000. I can't imagine having $12,000, much less spending it on a boat ride. Anyway, second class was mostly like tourists, academics, vacationing families, etc. They had their own library and stuff, but they did not have access to first-class amenities. For example, the Turkish baths. Also, there was this like this like very special staircase, the grand staircase that was only accessible by first class passengers. I don't know why the term second class citizen is supposed to be so lowly. Seems like they're fine, but I don't know anything. The second class ticket cost the equivalent of about $1,300 modern US dollars. Third class, aka steerage, was poor families and immigrants, a lot of Irish folks. Their quarters were below sea level, so obviously they flooded first, and since the upper classes were evacuated first, it was mostly the third class passengers who died. A lot of kids also. An adult third class ticket would have still been like over $1,000 today. So think about how difficult it would have been to scrape together that dough. Apparently, and this is not in the movie, but there was a significant number of people who were expected to be on board because it was a maiden voyage of this like esteemed ship, but they delayed their travel plans because there was a coal strike in the UK. Just another way worker solidarity saves lives. So anyway, the movie, I'm going to try to get through this at least kind of quickly. It is a 3-hour movie, so there's a lot to cover. It begins in present day, as in early 90s when the movie was made, on board the real-life academic Mstislav Keldysh. Alex will tell me that I fucked that up, but whatever. A Russian research vessel that has accompanying technology to do literal deep dives. I think they're called submersives, which is hilarious. And they can peek at sunken ships, which apparently James Cameron actually did. He was super into shipwrecks, and he used this technology to get real footage of the wreckage, and that's how he was able to convince the studio to let him make the movie. Bill Paxton's character, Brock Lovett, is like a sweater-wearing, one-hoop earring-having treasure hunter, searching for this absurdly large blue diamond that originally belonged to King Louis XVI and was thought to have gone down with the ship. They used their little underwater robot to recover a safe from one of the first-class rooms belonging to Cal Hockley, the extremely wealthy son of a steel tycoon. This is a fictional character, but I think he was modeled after Andrew Carnegie's son. Fake son. Andrew Carnegie didn't have a son, but imagination. Cal had purchased insurance on the diamond, which had been fashioned into a heart-shaped necklace called Le Coeur de la Mer, which is the heart of the ocean. And they brought that on board as a gift to his young fiancée, Rose. The guys, they get the safe on deck. It's a huge celebration. They've been looking for this thing for forever. They've got champagne and news cameras, and they open it up, and oops, no diamond, just a ton of ocean goo and a mud-covered drawing of a naked lady. But, oh snap, she's wearing the necklace in the drawing, and it's dated the night of the sinking, meaning this lady, whoever she is, was in possession of the heart of the ocean when the ship went down. So Lovett goes on TV to talk about it, and it catches the attention of a very old lady Potter and her husband-stealing granddaughter, who put in a phone call to the Keldysh, and she's like, "Hey, it's me. I'm the naked lady. Those are my nipples you showed on TV." So they bring her and her granddaughter and her little dog, too, onto the vessel, show her their findings so far, and in spite of the skepticism that she is who she says she is, she launches into the tale of her experience on the doomed ship, starting with those famous, memeable words, "It's been 84 years. Flashback to 1912. The Titanic is docked. There's Cal Hockley, his teenage fiancée Rose DeWitt Bucator, and her uptight mother, Ruth. There's also Jack Dawson and his buddy Fabrizio, who win themselves some third-class tickets in a game of cards, and now he's on the ship and he's king of the world. Old Rose's voiceover says that although it was called the Ship of Dreams, for her it was not so dreamy because it was taking her away from her home to a foreign land to marry this rich guy so that she and her mother, who have been broke since the death of her father, could maintain the high-class lifestyle to which they have become accustomed. Rose is pressured to do this by her mom, and that's a lot for a 17-year-old to have on their shoulders. Plus, she's kind of like spunky and free-spirited and is a bit reticent to live the rest of her life under the thumb of this controlling man who looks down his nose at everyone. She compares it to a prison, I think, and like, man, rich white people love comparing stuff to prison, especially when they have no idea what prison is like and benefit from the same systems that imprison poor people. But anyway, later on, Rose has had enough and she's gonna jump overboard, but Jack, who's out there having a smoke, and he hears her and he convinces her not to, but then she slips and she actually does almost die, but Jack saves her. And she convinces Cal to invite Jack to dinner the next night as a thank you. The next day, before dinner, they take a walk together on the first class deck and get to know each other a little bit better. Find out Jack is a bit of a vagabond, originally from a working class family in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And he's been kind of traveling around France, filling up his sketchbook with nudes. And Rose is surprised to find that these drawings are actually pretty good. As a poor guy, a worldly man, a man of the streets and of the people, he speaks to her in a very matter-of-fact way, and he kind of teases her for being a spoiled brat. And she's not used to being treated like this by people who are beneath her. And at first she's pissed, but then she's like, he actually sees me. And she likes that. Who wouldn't? As an artist, he's pretty good at seeing. He moves slowly through the world, and he's able to catch details that wealthy people don't bother to notice. At dinner, he's wearing a borrowed tux. He doesn't exactly blend in to Rose's world, and he doesn't really care to. And even though everyone is treating him like some strange specimen, he still rises above their snooty attitudes and comments, which further impresses Rose, but is to the dismay of Ruth and Cal. Then he brings Rose down to his level, literally, and shows her a good time among the poor Irish folk who are drinking and dancing, and Rose ends up impressing Jack with her toe strength and her wit, and she can drink too, yay! They're having a good time, the lady and the tramp, falling fast in love, but they're being followed and spied on by Cal's crony Lovejoy, which is a great name. The next day, Jack tries to see Rose again, but he finds out he's kind of overstayed his welcome. Nobody will let him in. Rose is trying to uphold her yucky responsibilities to her mom and Cal, so she tells Jack she can't see him again. And when he keeps trying to get to her, the class segregation does its job, and he's not able to get anywhere near her. So he's sulking at the front of the ship at sunset when she appears behind him, and turns out she's changed her mind. And they stand together and they spread their arms out so they can feel like they're flying, and the Celine Dion song swells in the background, and it's a very sweet moment. She takes him in her room and tells him she wants him to draw her like one of his French girls, wearing only the diamond necklace. So he does. Fun piece of trivia, it's actually James Cameron doing the drawing during close-ups of the hands. And when he's through, Rose has Jack put the drawing and a necklace in the safe with a note taunting Cal. That's all like, now you can keep us both locked away. Jack sees stacks of cash in there, and he has the opportunity to steal the money and the necklace, but he's much too honest, so he does not. Rose tells Jack that when the ship docks, she's going to go with him instead of with her people. When they sneak out past Lovejoy, slip into the cargo area, hide in a car, and that is where they finally get to make trembly, steamy love to one another, after which they go back out onto the deck and actually witness the collision with the iceberg. Now, the collision only happened because pressure was put on the captain to light all of the boilers, or whatever, and make the ship go real fast, even though they were making perfectly good time, because Bruce Ismay, the chairman of White Star Lines, is a real guy, wanted it to not only be the biggest ship, but also the fastest. So the ship was going too fast to be able to swerve around the iceberg. And because of like weather conditions, they didn't see it in time anyway. Pretty quickly, the lower decks start to fill up with water, and the ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, again, real guy, says it's a mathematical certainty that the ship will sink. And not only that, but there aren't nearly enough lifeboats for all of the passengers. So the whole second half of the movie is like the sinking and the panic. Cal goes into a safe, realizes, like, he sees the drawing, realizes Rose has been naked in front of this other dude and is leaving him, and he's mad. So he has Lovejoy sneak the necklace into Jack's pocket so that he can have him arrested for stealing, which he does, and then he puts the necklace in his own pocket. And Rose is like, what? No, he wouldn't do that. But she did open the safe and then turn around, left him alone. So she's confused and she's uncertain. Lovejoy takes Jack down below and handcuffs him to a pipe, then socks him in the gut and then pieces out as the water gets higher. Up top, people are panicking. It has become very clear that they are, in fact, sinking, even though they were told that the ship was unsinkable. And they paid a ton of money to get on this unsinkable ship that is now sinking. They're hundreds of miles from land, and they do send up, flares, but help doesn't seem to be coming. The crew is loading up lifeboats with women and children, but guess which classes are being helped, and guess which class is being left to drown in freezing water. They're not even filling up the lifeboats. It's so messed up. They could have done way more. So Rose is with her mom and Cal, and her mom is all worried about whether the lifeboats are being seated according to class. This lady is obsessed with class. And Cal is being his usual prickish self, so Rose goes peak unladylike, tells mom to shove it, calls Cal an unimaginable bastard, literally spits in his face, like hawks a giant gooey loogie right in his eye, and runs away to go free Jack. The lower decks are hella flooded, so she has to wade around to find him, but she does. But they don't have the handcuff key. So she grabs an axe and somehow is able to whack the right exact point without chopping off his hands. And then they race to get back up. They catch up to Cal, who is like, oh, and he puts his coat on Rose. And the guys usher Rose onto a lifeboat, even though she doesn't want to go without Jack. But he fibs and tells her that there are boats for men on the other side. And at first she buys it, but then she changes her mind again and hops off at the last second. And Cal cannot believe the length she's gone to for Jack and not him. And he steals his henchman's gun and chases Rose and Jack like a homicidal maniac, but runs out of bullets and realizes he needs to save his own ass. But then he remembers that the priceless diamond necklace is in the pocket of the coat that he just put on Rose. Damn. But shit is getting really dire, though, so he grabs a random child and lies his way onto one of the last remaining lifeboats. And now people are really freaking out, man. The crew have locked the third-class passengers down below, dooming them to die, but they revolt, and they break free. Hell yeah. The band continues to play their music to try to keep people calm. I'm not sure how well that's working, but it's admirable. The front of the ship is totally filled up, causing the stern, which is the boat's butt, to stick up out of the water. People are falling, people are jumping, people are getting crushed, getting electrocuted, getting shot. There's a priest leading people in prayer. The ship snaps in half, and there goes the lights. Sinks further, and the front half of the boat pulls the back half on top. Rose and Jack climb over the rail onto the top of the back half of the boat, which, if you remember, is where they met. And they hang on until the last second before the whole thing finally sinks and they hit the water. Plunged into icy darkness, they flail and they scream and they freak for a minute, and then they find a wooden door for Rose to climb onto. While Jack holds on, but he's still submerged in the really cold water. It's totally big enough for both of them. Everyone knows it. Even James Cameron has admitted it. But I think one could argue that there's some internalized classism going on within Jack's mind, and he insists that only Rose can survive. Like, maybe it's love, or maybe it's learned hierarchy. Rescue boats eventually show up, and Rose tries to rouse Jack, but he's dead and frozen in blue. And Rose is shocked and she's really sad. It's a really sad moment, but she has to act fast. So she pries a whistle from the mouth of a frozen corpse and she uses it to alert the rescuers to her existence. The RMS Carpathia took in survivors, and Rose was taken in as a third-class passenger, giving the name Rose Dawson, as in Jack Dawson, and avoiding Cal when he came looking for her. Old Rose voiceover tells them Cal eventually did get married and inherit his millions, but then he killed himself after the stock market crash in 1929. So, back to present day, this old lady has everybody crying, and Brock realizes he's never going to find that necklace. Flashback to young Rose standing in the rain on the Carpathia, looking up at the Statue of Liberty as they get into New York Harbor, and her face changes as she reaches into the coat pocket and realizes she has the necklace. So she's had it all this time, 84 years, through her whole life. Of getting to do stuff like ride horses, not side saddle, and fly planes, travel and stuff. All the stuff she and Jack talked about doing, stuff that she never would have gotten to do had she married Cal. And she drops it into the water, and we see it sink down into the ocean to be with the ship and all the people who died and the general wreckage of the life that she had escaped or abandoned, whatever. We get a glimpse then of a reunion that never happened, which is an imagining of Rose coming down that first class only grand staircase to join Jack just as he looked on the night that they met. And they share a romantic kiss, and all the faces we've gotten to know over the past 3 hours look on with smiles and applause. Cue the Celine Dion, the movie is over. So, obviously, class is the huge thing here. Even though people from every class died, it was mostly third class. All of the first class people were very concerned with maintaining it in some form or other. They gossiped about each other, talked behind each other's backs, looked down on people who were new money, meaning people who married into money as opposed to having, like, generational familial wealth. You know, people gotta put others down to lift themselves up, I guess. Even with the first class tickets, there were different prices, like what? First class and then first-er class? Like I said, and like everyone knows, the movie was extremely successful, brought in tons of money, cemented everyone involved as stars. The soundtrack also did really well, made it to the top of the charts in a bunch of places, sold over 30 million copies, one of which was sold to me. Definitely owned that. More trivia. Apparently on set, some disgruntled employee put PCP in the food one day and like 50 of the cast and crew had to go to the hospital. I shouldn't laugh at that. But there's that trivia. There is an alternate ending where Brock and Lizzie see old Rose standing at the edge and run to her. But she's like, no, don't come any closer. And then she shows them that she has the necklace and she says something like, the hardest part of the poverty that she chose, by the way, was that she actually was rich because of the diamond, but that she wouldn't sell it because she didn't want Cal's help. There's something so annoying and offensive about people equating poverty to freedom. Like, I understand the message they're trying to send. Like, Jack even says, you don't need money, you can get by with nothing, and focus on living a life of adventure, gotta make each day count, and that's kind of a theme. But, humility is cool, and rejecting wealth is admirable in some cases, but, like, the reality of a poor person's life does not often involve freedom and adventure, man. Like, how many poor or even just broke people do you know who were like, oh, I get to sleep under the stars, life is good? They had to add some feel-good shit to a tragic storyline, I guess. Make it nice for the audiences. I think even at a young age, I was kind of like, hold up, what? They just let all those people, all those kids die, but I'm supposed to feel better because at least they weren't bound by the awful chains of extreme wealth. Like, yeah, tell that to 2005 New Orleans. It's also fucked up if you think about how in today's time, life expectancy and access to healthcare and safety are increased the higher your socioeconomic standing is. It's also a race issue, obviously. So if you've never seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, give it a watch if you want to get hyped for the class war. Or maybe just sit in the bathtub and throw on some Celine Dion and pretend you're there. It's not available anywhere for free as far as I know. I think you have to rent it, which costs a couple bucks, which sucks. I kind of feel like all movies made before a certain date should be free. Like, where's this money going? You know, is Leo DiCaprio really hurting from my $3.99? YouTube doesn't have enough money already? Anyway, that's that's it for this episode. Make sure you're tuning in to the full episodes, following us online at PLR Pod. Go to the YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, save, all that jazz. And check out our Patreon. We've got a ton of merch coming. There's some bonus content you can get access to, and the money helps us out a lot and allows us to donate more to local mutual aid organizations. Got a lot of great guests lined up, so keep listening and stay cool. I love you.